I'm going to say something that might sting a little. Inconsistency is the real financial killer. Not low income, not inflation, not student loans, not a lack of knowledge. Inconsistency. I have coached women who make six figures and feel constantly behind. I've coached women who make far less and build impressive savings and stability. And the difference is rarely income, it's consistency. Consistency in checking accounts, consistency in tracking spending, consistency in saving, consistency in reviewing goals, consistency in adjusting when things go off track. Most women don't struggle financially because they don't know what to do. They struggle because they do it for 2 weeks and then stop. They save for a month and then stop. They budget when they feel motivated and then stop. And every time you stop, you reset momentum. This is why you can feel like you are working hard with your money, but not actually getting anywhere. Because progress with money is not built in dramatic breakthroughs. It is built in repeated, boring, steady decisions. Trust me, you do not need a better spreadsheet. You need a better relationship with consistency. And today, I'm breaking down 6 reasons why consistency, not motivation, not perfection, not even income, is the real secret to financial success. If you have ever felt like you're constantly starting over with your money, this episode is for you. Okay, reason number 1. Inconsistency breaks momentum, and momentum is everything. Money success is rarely about one big decision. It's about small decisions repeated consistently over time. The problem with inconsistency is not just that you miss a week of budgeting or you skip a savings transfer. The problem is that every time you stop, your momentum is interrupted. And momentum is powerful. When you're consistent, your brain starts to expect follow through. You begin to trust yourself. You start to see small wins stack up. Checking your accounts now feels normal, not stressful. Transferring money feels automatic. And adjusting your budget actually feels manageable. But when you're inconsistent, everything feels heavier than it should. You skip one weekly check-in and then 2, and then you pause your savings just for this month and you stop tracking because things got busy. And then suddenly, you're not maintaining your money, you're reacting to it. Momentum doesn't just disappear financially, it disappears mentally. When you lose consistency, you lose that clarity. And when you lose clarity, you lose a lot of confidence. And when confidence is gone, you start avoiding it altogether. And I think avoidance is when financial chaos ensues. I've seen this with high income women who technically make more than enough. And, honestly, they're intentional, they're intelligent, they're capable, they know what to do. But because they're inconsistent with their habits and routines, they always feel behind. They feel stressed and they feel like they're constantly playing catch up. And here's the part that most people miss. Rebuilding momentum always feels harder than maintaining it. It takes more energy to restart than it does to just continue. And this is why habits and routines matter so much, not just in finances, but in life and personal goals. They protect your momentum. They reduce the amount of energy that's required for you to make good decisions. And they remove that daily debate we can have on whether or not you feel like doing something. So, consistency turns discipline into the default behavior. And I think that default behavior, because it's consistent, is what's going to build wealth. When you consistently review your accounts, you catch problems early. When you consistently save money, your balances grow quietly in the background. And when you consistently adjust your budget, small mistakes never become big crises. Now, consistency isn't flashy. It's not really exciting. It doesn't look impressive on social media. It's a small daily choice to show up, and that choice builds stability. So, if you feel like you're constantly starting over with your money, It's likely not because you lack knowledge, it's because your momentum keeps getting interrupted. Reason number two, consistency builds self trust, and self trust changes everything. So, we've already established momentum keeps you moving, but consistency builds something even deeper. It builds self trust, and self trust is one of the most underrated financial assets you can have. When you consistently manage your money, now, not perfectly manage your money, but you consistently manage your money, you begin to trust yourself. You trust that you'll check your accounts. You trust that you'll adjust when you need to. You trust that you won't just ignore your problems. And you trust that you can handle what comes up when it eventually does come up. And I think that that trust in yourself really changes how you move through the world. I actually talk about this in episode 141, how managing my money has boosted my confidence, because the transformation for me wasn't just financial, it was personal. I'll be sure to link to that episode in the show notes. But for me, managing my money consistently over the years has given me confidence in rooms that I used to question whether or not I belonged in. As a mixed race woman who identifies as Black, building and managing wealth has just shifted how I saw myself in spaces where money and power are visible. I no longer felt like I was faking it or relying on credit to keep up, right? I knew my numbers, I knew my net worth, I knew I had built something real, and that confidence wasn't loud, and it shouldn't have been, right? But it was grounded. Now, consistency also changed how I approached risk. Okay. So years ago, way before I got to where I am now, I made decisions out of hope and a little bit of adrenaline. Now I take calculated risks. So, for example, I may leverage a 0% interest promotion strategically from like a credit card account and make a large investment. It's backed by systems and discipline. It's not reckless, it's informed. It's not overspending, it's planned for. And that difference comes from years of consistent money management. Consistency has built my trust in my ability to make more money too. When I finally left my corporate job and ran City Girl Savings full time, it wasn't blind faith. I was not one of those people. I did not make rash decisions. I planned everything. And that transition was backed by data. It was backed by tracking, discipline, by months and years of showing myself that I could manage what I earned. And that consistency made entrepreneurship feel possible for me instead of terrifying. And maybe the most powerful shift during one of the hardest seasons of my life was when my income dipped because I chose to be present for my mom during her final year of life. This was, when I was running City Girl Savings full time. During that time, I wasn't panicked. I wasn't scrambling. I wasn't just completely undone financially, right? Maybe emotionally, because that's a hard thing to go through. But financially, I had built reserves, I had built structure, I had built stability. And that season proved something to me. It proved that my systems worked. My consistency had built security, and that security created peace for me. So that is what self-trust looks like financially. It's knowing that even if something shifts, you can handle it. It's knowing that you can make large purchases and still be okay because you've done the math consistently. It's knowing that you can level up your lifestyle and maintain it because you have the habits to support it. Most women think confidence comes first and then consistency follows, but it's the opposite. Consistency creates confidence. Every weekly check-in, every savings transfer, every honest budget adjustment, every time you bounce back after slipping up, you are proving to yourself, I can trust me. And when you trust yourself with money, you just move differently. You take opportunities that maybe you hesitated on, and you just stop shrinking in financial conversations. You stop avoiding numbers and avoiding things, and you stop telling yourself that you're just bad with money. Trusting yourself turns financial management into identity, and identity is what's here to stay. Reason number 3, consistency compounds financially and behaviorally. So, there is a reason investors obsess over compounding because compounding turns small, repeated actions into exponential results. And here's the part that most people miss: compounding doesn't just apply to investments, it applies to behavior as well. But let's start with the money side of it. When you invest consistently, even small amounts, those dollars begin earning returns. And then those returns earn even more returns. And then those returns earn returns on the returns. Okay, you get where I'm going with that, right? That's compounding. It's slow at first, almost invisible. Now, in the early years of investing, growth can feel a little underwhelming. You contribute 200 here, 500 there. You check your balances and think, that's it. But over time, something shifts because consistent contributions, paired with market growth, obviously, they don't just grow linearly. They grow exponentially, okay? So 5% growth on $1,000 feels small. 5% growth on $100,000 feels very different. And 5% growth on $500,000 feels life-changing. The principle applies to savings, to debt payoff, to net worth tracking, small weekly transfers, small consistent payments above the minimum, small disciplined habits. They don't feel dramatic in the moment, but they create exponential outcomes over time. Now, that's the financial side of it. Let's talk about the behavior side of it. When you consistently check your accounts, you become someone who is aware. When you consistently track your spending, you become someone who's intentional. When you consistently adjust instead of avoid, you become someone who is resilient. That identity compounds. So, just like investments are growing quietly in the background, habits strengthen quietly in the background. You don't just wake up one day financially confident because of one big breakthrough. You wake up confident because you've shown up 100 times in small ways. And here's where inconsistency can be dangerous. When you contribute to investments randomly, you interrupt compounding. When you save only when you feel like it, your growth stalls. And when you budget sporadically, behavioral momentum resets. So compounding only works when you're consistent. It only works when you keep going. The market does not reward dramatic bursts of investing followed by long gaps, okay? Your financial life doesn't reward intense budgeting for 1 month followed by 3 months of avoidance. Compounding rewards steadiness, and that steadiness requires consistency. So, this is why I care less about someone who is investing today and more about whether they are investing consistently, right? If you just have a lump sum to put into your investments today, I would rather you figure out a way to consistently contribute over time. So I care less about a dramatic debt payoff month and more about whether those debt payments can happen every single month. I care less about a perfect budget and more about whether someone can return to it again and again when things don't go as planned. Because exponential growth belongs to the consistent. The math proves it, and your behavior follows those same rules. Reason number 4, consistency reduces financial anxiety. Let's spend a little time talking about something that doesn't get enough attention in personal finance conversations, and that's anxiety. In episode 178, Finding Peace in Your Finances, I shared that nearly 70% of Americans reported feeling financial stress. That's not a small number. That is a majority. And whether you fall into like a clinical anxiety category or not, you've likely felt that tightening in your chest when you think about money. So, what I've learned both personally and through coaching women is that inconsistency really feeds that anxiety. When you don't check your numbers regularly, your brain tries to fill in the gaps. When you avoid your accounts, your imagination becomes louder than reality. And when you delay looking at balances or debt, that uncertainty is growing. And that uncertainty is a breeding ground for stress. But when you consistently review your accounts, nothing festers. You know what's going on. When you consistently track your spending, there are no dramatic surprises. You know what's going on. And when you consistently adjust your budget, you don't have to fear the end of the month coming. Your nervous system responds to predictability. Just think about it. When you know you have a weekly check in scheduled, your brain doesn't have to hold on to the weight of, oh God, I should look at my money. It knows there is a time and place set for that. The structure alone reduces mental noise. So, in episode 178, which I'll link to in the show notes, I talked about acknowledging your feelings and getting clear on your numbers. Those steps are powerful, but they only work long term if you practice them consistently. You cannot acknowledge your anxiety once and then expect peace forever. You can't review your finances one time and eliminate stress permanently. Peace with your money is not a one-time event. It is a rhythm. It's consistency. And consistency turns financial management into something that is proactive instead of reactive. When you consistently know where you stand, you stop overly dramatizing things. You stop assuming worst case scenarios. You stop avoiding because you're afraid of what you might find. And this matters so much for high achieving women because many of you are competent and confident in your careers, but privately anxious about money. You're making good income, but you don't feel grounded. You're capable, but you don't feel calm. It's inconsistency that creates that disconnect. When you're inconsistent, every expense feels threatening. Every bill feels like a surprise. Every dip in income feels like a crisis. But when you're consistent, fluctuations feel manageable. A lower month doesn't completely undo you. An unexpected expense doesn't completely derail you. So consistency doesn't eliminate financial challenges, right? I wish it did, but it does eliminate financial chaos. And that chaos is what causes anxiety. Reason number 5, consistency separates interest from commitment. Now, there is a difference between being interested in financial success and actually being committed to it. Interest sounds more like, well, I want to save more. I guess I should budget. I really need to get started with investing, or this is the year I will get serious. But commitment sounds a little different. It sounds like I review my accounts every single Sunday. I transfer money to savings every single payday. I invest every single month, regardless of how I feel. And I return to my system even when I slip up. So, interest is a bit emotional. Commitment is behavioral. Interest shows up when you feel inspired, right? When you're feeling motivated. But commitment shows up when you're tired. This is where consistency really becomes that dividing line. Many women are incredibly interested in building wealth. They listen to podcasts, they read books, they save posts, they buy planners, they talk about goals, but interest without consistent action only produces frustration. You can be incredibly intelligent and still inconsistent. You can understand investing and still not invest. You can know how to budget and still not track. You can have ambitious income goals and still avoid reviewing your numbers. And that's because knowledge does not create commitment. Consistency does. Consistency forces you to prove to yourself that you mean what you say. If you say you want financial peace, are you constantly or consistently doing things that actually create it? If you say you want to build wealth, are you consistently investing? If you say you want to eliminate debt, are you consistently making extra payments? Commitment is visible in your calendar, it's visible in your bank statements, it's visible in your conversations. Your habits tell the truth about your priorities. And here's something I say often to my coaching clients. The version of you who reaches her financial goals is not more motivated than you. She's more consistent than you. Okay? Did you get that? The version of you who reaches her financial goals is not more motivated than you. She's just more consistent. She doesn't rely on emotion to drive her execution. She relies on structure and systems. She doesn't wait until she feels ready. She follows her system. Consistency is what turns I hope into I do. And this is where some of you may feel a little resistance. I understand, because consistency often requires a little bit of discomfort. It requires saying no sometimes. It requires looking at your numbers honestly when you'd rather scroll social media. And it requires showing up when nobody is applauding you. But what separates interest from commitment is the consistency. The consistency is the dividing factor. If you're constantly starting over, it's not because you don't care, it's because you haven't fully committed yet. And that commitment hasn't been declared, and it's not going to be declared, it's going to be demonstrated. Consistency is the demonstration. Okay, final reason number 6, consistency makes success inevitable. So when you remove inconsistency from the picture, from the equation, financial success stops feeling mysterious. It actually starts to become predictable. Now, this is not overnight, it's not instantly, but it does become predictable. Here's the thing. If you consistently save, your savings will grow. If you consistently invest, your investments will compound. If you consistently track spending, your awareness will sharpen. If you consistently adjust, your mistakes will shrink. And if you consistently return after slipping up, your confidence will build. So, again, the timeline will vary. It's not overnight, it's not instant, but the outcome becomes inevitable. And this is what I want you to understand. Wealth is not built by dramatic bursts of discipline. It is built by repeated, steady behavior over years. The woman who builds financial security is not the one who has one perfect year. She's the one who shows up imperfectly for 10 years, okay? Consistency removes luck from the equation. You don't have to wonder, well, will this work for me? You don't have to hope that your income randomly increases, and you don't have to pray that one good month changes everything. When you are consistent, the odds stack in your favor. And over time, the math starts working for you instead of against you. This is why I care so much about systems, because systems really protect that consistency. And when you start seeing results, it just fuels you to keep going. Now, you might not double your income in a year. You might not pay off all of your debt in 6 months. You might not feel financially confident tomorrow. But if you are consistent, you will not be in the exact same place you are now in the next 5 years, and that is inevitable. Now, if you struggle with consistency, I want you to know it's not because you're lazy, okay? It's not because you're bad with money. It's not because you lack ambition. I know that's not the case. It's because you do not have the right systems and accountability in place right now. Consistency is not a personality trait, okay? It's structure, and structure can be built. Some women can build it on their own. Some women need support to build it. And that's not weakness. That's actually strategy to know that about yourself. So if you have been interested in financial success for years, but not committed in action, I want to challenge you to do something different. Consider coaching. Consider working with someone that can help you build that consistency in your finances. In my money coaching program, we don't just talk about goals. We build weekly execution. We build routines. We build systems that shorten the gap between slipping up and returning. We build consistency until it becomes the norm. So if you are ready for that level of change, let's talk. I will have the link in the show notes so you can learn more.